Hi guys, so it has been absolutely forever since I've come to you with this specific video. I'm not even sure if anybody's actually interested anymore, or if you were interested to begin with, but I feel incomplete not somehow continuing it or finishing it, so I'm going to carry on with some more reviews from that big anthology I read, like, it's got to be 2 years ago now, which was, see, I can't even remember off the top of my head now, but bear with, Edgar Allan Poe, The Best of His Macabre Tales, Complete and Unabridged. So I'm going to do, I think, 6 story reviews, just because one of the short stories inside, it's a very short review I've got, so it'll be pointless kind of highlighting that when there's barely anything to talk about. So I'm going to start off with the Premature Burial. I'm going to be glancing down quite a fair bit in this, just because it was so long ago that I read them now, so my reviews are all written down. I can't remember basically. So this one I actually gave a 5 out of 5 stars. So it had similar themes to The Fall of the House of Usher, with the theme of being buried too early sort of thing. However, it was less supernatural in style. However, in saying that, I wasn't sure if this was like a true accounts collected, because it didn't feel like fictionalized in any way. It actually felt quite real. But then again, Poe's work, he's got quite a skill in making you believe something, I feel. Nevertheless, it was extremely interested in kind of exploring the disorder of catalepsy. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. Catalepsy, I think it is. And how that illness of stillness and like a death-like trance was the main reason why many people were found to be buried alive, like too early sort of thing, and obviously probably died through that. I didn't look into research, so I'm not sure if it's a real thing, and that probably sounds really stupid in itself, but yeah. Is this true? Like, is this actually real? Because it sounds like quite believable, and if so, it's very scary. Obviously, I've never heard of that before, and from this review 2 years ago, I did want to do further reading on it, but as you can see, I clearly haven't. The exploration at the end was way more easier to absorb than other works of Poe, specifically in this collection. And although it was enjoyable, I also found that I actually learnt something new. Whether it be true or not, I've still not discovered. Alright, next up is The Mask of the Red Death, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. As short as it was actually one of my favourite stories of the collection, and it definitely had more of a storytelling premise. I really loved the plot's concept and the oddness of the prince and his weird masquerade. It didn't inspire as much fear as some of the other short stories have done, those that were less story-like in nature, but it was still very good nonetheless. I feel like because I got this collection on loan from the library, that specific story, as well as the one previous to it, I think, would be ones that I'd buy singularly and have in my collection, because it was quite enjoyable. So this is the next really short review that I mentioned briefly at the start. And I can't pronounce the last name, I can't keep that word in my head, so do forgive me for reading this out. But that is The Cask of Amontillado. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, and I gave that a 1 out of 5 stars, unfortunately. I didn't quite understand what I was reading at all, and I did at the time feel like I should be rereading it to hopefully, you know, broaden my insight, but I never got around to it, and as of now I don't remember what it was about to begin with, so yeah, don't really care about that one, to be honest. And then we have The Imp of the Perverse. This one I ended up giving a 3.5 out of 5 stars to. It seemed to be a study of sort, from the words of like a convicted evildoer, or an assumed evildoer should I say, and it was like a study of the human mind indulging in the perverse and anything to do with, you know, unseemly things. I don't think Poe was always thinking of perverse as in the literal sense that you might imagine, but more of how us as human beings can lack the will to do things that we should be doing, that's the right thing to do, and then like just putting it off until the next day. So I think that's kind of mainly what he was going for, but there were other hints at other things as well. And as well as that, it sort of highlighted us as humans reveling in certain thoughts that kind of fester in the dark recesses of our minds. Deep, I know. And thus pushing us to do things that we shouldn't or usually wouldn't do, if that makes sense. Initially, I felt like this story kind of made me feel stupid, but after reading it, I think I thought about it quite well. Like, I thought over and over it and kind of what it meant. I might have gone to overthinking, but I don't know. I feel like I've discovered an interpretation that I'm comfortable in understanding. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on it. So the next story that I'm going to give a quick review is The Oval Portrait. and I gave that a 3 out of 5 stars. I think I would have been satisfied with just the main story about the girl in the portrait rather than reading it from the perspective of another character that was kind of stumbling on this portrait and learning the history and story behind the portrait for himself. There was a young bride mentioned in this that I found was just being absolutely petty, and I couldn't really stand her. I mean, she was acting that way, like jealous over her husband's love for painting, and I just couldn't understand that. That's like a passion and a hobby. Like, why are you feeling these ways about an inanimate activity? Do you know what I mean? But in saying that, I could see his love for that activity turning obsessive, especially when painting his wife, making her sit for hours on end just regarding her comfort, and so that I can understand. In the end, it was causing her discomfort, ill health, mental suffering, and he didn't seem to understand that. Honestly, I feel like things just escalated way too quickly, but I did like the idea of the plot, and I would actually quite enjoy reading something similar but in a longer format. So yeah, it was enjoyable, but there were some things that I found to irritate me a little bit. Lastly, for this video, I'm going to be talking about the Assassination, how do you pronounce that? I don't know, but I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So from the plot, this sounded like a friend finding out about an affair between his friend and a very well loved, sort of acclaimed beautiful woman that was already married to someone in power, someone to be very influential and, I guess, powerful. I did like that it was set in Venice because it reminded me a little bit of one of the books that I enjoyed once before that was set there as well, so it's kind of a nice little bit of a nostalgia, which is strange saying because I've never been to the country before, but you know when you read a book set in like the same place and they use similar descriptions and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, that's nostalgic. That's kind of the feeling I had, which is very odd. It had a very dramatic Romeo and Juliet feel to it, and though very different to something that I would usually read, I quite enjoyed it. So yeah, that's my review of the next 6 stories within that set of collection. Let me know if you've read those short stories, what you thought of them, and thank you very much for watching. Bye.